All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to the Nefesh podcast. It's good to have you with us. This is episode 40, and I am so excited to have a guest back on that is pretty much going to keep me laughing the whole time. I wish I could pay you, Adrianna, just to be like my court jester, just to like come in and make me laugh. You could totally, I mean, you'd be willing.
I do it for free right now. So
That's true. But she is back, Adrianna. What's your real last name? What do you go by now?
okay, so I tell people Rubio, but
Okay.
if it's legal, if there's legal matters involved, then I go by Amato because I
Okay.
can't prove Rubio. Sorry, I haven't changed my name yet. Whatever.
So Adrianna is back with us, and for those of you who didn't get to listen to her episode talking about just her experience growing up in a very strict Pentecostal holiness church experience, we had a really good time. We were just talking today that I think you need to write a book, and the title of your book should be "I Just Want to Wear Pants."
that really was the goal. I just wanted to wear pants.
You didn't want to go out and do anything sinful. You just wanted to be able to wear pants. But you need to go back and listen to that episode. But we've got her back because even is it okay if I say your age?
Yeah.
At the very young age, but also old because you're a wise soul.
Thanks.
The young age of 30, like you've lived a whole life. You've
Yep.
been married, you've been divorced, you've moved across the country, you're in school now, but you already have like a degree. You've already had like a whole life. And really, came here to California because you felt like the Lord was calling you to be here and really help fix a lot of things and people and schools and all that, and bring with you so many amazing talents. But one of the things that I want to talk about is your divorce experience, and I think people gravitate towards you because you really are an open book, and you just want to share and just kind of communicate. Divorce is like a taboo topic
Yeah.
in the church, right?
Yeah. Going through it, there was pretty much zero resources out there.
Wow.
For my perspective of the divorce. There's obviously multiple reasons of why people get divorced, and so there was resources out there for certain scenarios, but not for mine.
Right.
And so I'm like, well, maybe I'll have to write another book. One about jeans.
I just want to get a divorce.
Just want to get divorced. No, but I really did have a hard time with certain things because especially in the church, it was not okay. Right?
Well, and because in your experience there weren't any extramarital affairs, it wasn't. So those are the things that is our fallback, right? In the church and based on the Bible, that it's only okay to divorce if somebody has had an affair. But similar to, and I want to preface this by saying that I do think that marriage is an important institution and needs to be safeguarded and all that kind of stuff. All the stuff that I want to make sure to clarify.
Yeah.
But I think similar to other aspects of the Bible and Christianity, we have turned Jesus's words that seem to be clear, we have turned them into straitjackets,
Right.
that are destructive to people. Now, I am going to quote something that people may disagree with, but I really felt it to be, it really caused me to pause and think. Amy Grant, who I grew up listening to, she is still my all-time favorite singer. I grew up listening to her, right?
Wait, I'm not your all-time favorite singer?
Well, you're a second, close
Wow.
second. Wow. But she went through a very famous divorce, and it was really big, and people stopped playing her music. And in fact, it got contentious. I remember somebody in one church experience, we were playing one of her songs, and they were like, "Turn off that adulterer's music," and it was like,
Wow.
oh. But she said something in a book that she wrote, kind of her, like a biography. She said, when she was in counseling during the process of her divorce or prior to it, that the counselor told her that God made marriage for people, not people for marriage. And I recognize that there are going to be theologians who are going to disagree with, but
Right.
that's your choice. But I think that while again, marriage is so very important, and as much as possible, two people coming together should stay together for the rest of their lives. Again, we've made something legalistic that in reality, in a broken world, really becomes confining and even harmful at times. So I heard somebody years ago, I know I'm doing all the talking, but then I'll let you go and you'll take it over.
I have plenty to say. Don't worry about me.
But I remember someone once said, and they were going, their marriage was very, very destructive. Again, no affairs, but the guy turned out to be not just verbally and emotionally abusive, but eventually physically abusive, and we kind of found that out later. But even before we knew what was going on, he made the comment that that even abuse, that God's word doesn't say anything about abuse, and so therefore it's not okay to divorce somebody who is abusive.
Which is crazy.
Which is, I hope most of you can agree that that's a crazy thought. And so again, this is such an important topic. And again, I love the fact that you're so willing to talk about it. So give us a little bit of context. So for those who didn't listen to your last episode together,
Yeah.
what was your home church life theology that kind of led you into this marriage that was really not good from the start? So take us back a little bit to the beginning and then jump to the good stuff.
It was a Sunday night, 10:01 p.m., May the 17th. I'm just kidding. That's when I was born, by the way.
Her birthday's coming up, so
It
if you want to
is,
send her
31.
gifts, you can look her up on Facebook, Venmo, all that kind of stuff.
I do take Cash App, Venmo, Starbucks gift cards, Target gift cards, all the good gift cards. Okay, anyways. So, grew up in a very strict church. Strict as in, for the 21st century, there was a lot of things that felt very old school, like your attire, what you wore was very important. You had to, girls, more specifically for women, but like dress modestly. And it was very controlling in hopes that you wouldn't sin, right? So I get that their reasoning of why they did it, but it was just like this uneducated mindset of, if we can keep you as innocent as possible, as long as possible, then you're going to be closer to the Lord. It'll be
you're going
a
to avoid
better
all
life.
the pitfalls, the sin.
Don't go do all these bad things. It'll taint you. It'll ruin your lives and whatever.
Right.
And so, cool concept. However, part of the consequence of that is, yes, there's a level of innocence, but then there's also a level of, like, I was super naive to a lot of things.
Right.
I really just didn't know. And so, like, ignorance can be bliss. Sometimes. But when it comes to, like, lifelong decisions and what you're building your future on, you don't really know what there is out there. You don't know what to even look for. I personally didn't really fully understand what was marriage supposed to be. What was the point of marriage? More so because I'm also Hispanic, and they don't say it this way, but there's just this understanding of, like, you're not leaving your house until you're married.
Right.
You live with your mom and dad. As a woman, live with your mom and dad, and when you get married, you move out and whatever.
Wow.
And so my parents never told me I couldn't move out, but it just never...
It was like it implied...
Never crossed my mind.
Wow.
And so after the fact, I'm like, I could have had some of my friends. We could have been roommates, got an apartment together. Like, it just didn't...
And lived essentially beyond the security of your parents' house, which would have given you life experience, right?
Yeah. I didn't go away to college. I stayed at the community college that we had. And so I never left home.
Right.
Whereas, like, my brother, I have an older brother and older sister, and they both got to experience a little bit more. But my personality was always the most outgoing or outspoken. I was the loudest, pretty much. And so I think that you would assume that I knew a lot because I said a lot. I shared a lot.
Is there ever a thought that you haven't expressed?
Okay, now at 30, yes. So you're welcome. But also, it's just, you you gotta just let people. I don't know. I just tell people how it is. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. It's good and bad. It has its moments. So I growing up, I just observed the world around me and I saw things. And the sad truth is most marriages that I saw weren't too happy, in love, mushy gushy, whatever. Like, so that's fairy tale stuff. You see that on movies, but you don't see that with my aunts, my uncles, my people around me.
Did it feel, so was it more of a this is real life marriage, or was it like, hey, this isn't even a happy marriage? And then obviously the extreme of what you see on TV.
No, it was more of this is reality.
Okay.
So it wasn't a bad marriage. It just was
just
like, this is marriage.
Life. It's not always. In fact, sometimes you really dislike the person.
And if it was almost like, well, when you marry a person, divorce isn't an option. So when things get tough, it's like, well, this is who you picked.
Right.
So figure it out between the two of you. Obviously, you picked them for a reason, so you stay together and you figure it out. Which, depending on the circumstance, that's not always possible.
Right.
And so, for me, when I started dating my ex, we both were, I would say, not at a healthy place. Like,
how old were you when you started dating?
I was 20.
Okay. So still very young by your childhood exposure kind of experience. Again, you really are more mature than your age, but your maturity comes from your mind and your ability to process things and make sense of things, but it wasn't like you were exposed to a whole life outside of your home and your church.
Right.
Yeah.
And so by 20, I had just started going to a different church that let me wear pants.
You got to wear pants.
I finally went and bought those jeans. And so I was in this new experience of, I had just graduated with my associate's degree, so after community college. Okay. So it was like a whole new world, right? Okay. A whole new world. I told you I was going to sing on this episode. Okay. This message is not sponsored by Disney. So it was a whole new experience for me. I was out of school, and so it's like, I need a job.
Right.
Which is a whole different, we could do a whole podcast on that. Like, wait, I'm supposed to work over the summer? Excuse me? So I'm 20, I have a job. I started going to a new church. I started wearing what I wanted. I started expressing myself the way I wanted. I was doing all this stuff, and it's like, man, this is a whole new Adrianna.
Wow.
Whole new experience. And so I was still very, I would say, like, angry, especially with the old church, and like, you guys told me that I would go to hell if I did this, but now look at me, and God is still talking to me, and I'm still living my life. And so there was a lot of like bitterness. Yeah, that's the word. And it just was like, almost like I'm angry at them, right?
Right.
When I met my ex, he had his own fair share of bitterness towards.
Did he grow up in that same environment?
Yes.
Okay.
And so he understood it. And so hindsight now, I believe that we for sure trauma bonded.
Wow.
So you're angry at the world?
Look up that term.
Trauma bonding.
That's a nice fancy
It is, isn't it?
Therapy term. Go look it up.
But I for sure can say, okay, he was angry and I was angry. And we both looked at each other like, oh, you're angry too?
You understand.
Yeah. Yes. I feel understood. I feel seen. And so naturally we got close. Also, he's hilarious. You think
funnier than you?
Okay, you think I'm funny? I think he's funnier than me.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
I think. Well,
I don't think that's possible.
Okay. Well, he made me laugh.
Okay.
So
all right.
regardless,
okay,
he made me laugh, and I mean, it was like jokes out of nowhere, and it was like, so we totally connected on that because it was like nobody could tell us anything.
Yeah.
Us as a team, you're getting roasted on every level. If he can't come up with it, I'm coming up with it. We were like a great team in that aspect, right? And it just made it fun. And so then I'm experiencing all these new things. Then when I started dating him, he's like, he was older. He was about 5 or 6, 7 years older than me.
Okay.
So has experienced a bunch of things too. And he's like, we'll go away for the weekend and we'll do this and I'll take you here and you can go here. And I'm like, I'm getting to live life. Yeah. So all of this is, roses and flowers and unicorns and rainbows. And it's amazing. And it's like, this is what I've always wanted, to feel like I'm finally living, because as a teenager I felt very like stifled. I couldn't,
Yes,
you
right.
can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, right? So in that, I think that was part of it. Now, mind you, I loved the man.
Yeah.
Right? As I think that we could have been the absolute best of friends. But not having tools, I didn't know what it was like to be friends with guys,
Okay.
because you weren't really allowed to do that.
So you didn't have guy friends growing up.
I did, but they were like far away. Like they were like friends on MySpace.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
MySpace was
Hey,
it back in the day.
Again, look it up if you don't know what that is.
Facebook before
it
Facebook.
no longer does it still exist?
I don't know. I gotta ask Tom.
If it does, I still have a MySpace page out there.
With the cool music and the cool backgrounds. MySpace was it. So my church was a very small church, but we were connected with other churches from different states and stuff. And so I would make friends at our big events, but I'm not going to see you because you live in New Jersey and I live in New York. You know, it's like we're far away. So I was friends online with them, so they weren't complete strangers.
Okay.
Because I saw them in person.
Right.
But I was never, so I had like little fake boyfriends here and there, and like people that I talked to on the phone or something. But it wasn't the same as, like, he was the first guy that lived in the town right next to me.
Yeah.
I could see you every day. We could hang out every weekend. And so it felt like this was the first real thing. And it's like, this is it. I found it, right? This is what people talk about. And so I did have people in my life that were like, well, you don't need to settle. There's a whole world out there, whatever. But I'm also like, first of all, don't tell me what to do.
That was your first mistake.
I'm not settling.
Don't tell me to be happy. I'm gonna be.
Because I didn't, with my very limited view of the world, I was like, I'm probably not going to go travel the world.
Yeah.
Like, let's be realistic. I live in a very small town in New York. My mom grew up in this town. Like, I'm probably going to live here and whatever. Like, and not that I didn't have bigger dreams. I just didn't think to dream, because who does that when you're not really
You hadn't.
questioned?
Right. You
Like,
hadn't done that.
Right. No one's ever prompted me to be like, if you could go anywhere in the world, and money wasn't an issue, because that's always money. Outside of money, where would you go? Like, do you want to see Paris? Do you want to go to Italy? Do you want to? And probably I would be like, no, it's fine. I'll just stay in my small town. And my biggest thing was like, I'll move to New York City.
Like, that was the highest dream.
When I was a teenager, I was like, New York City, I'll go to Brooklyn. Not even the city. Brooklyn's cool. They have cool accents.
Like yours.
It's not an accent. I don't say coffee.
It's more of the Puerto Rican, almost. I don't know if this is offensive, but almost New Jersey like, just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Wow, Jersey, those are Italians.
I know.
But anyways, no, I don't care. It's just the East Coast vibe. But Northeast. Let me just be clear, the Northeast. But realistically, it was just like being able to have all these new experiences and stuff. It was just like I had never dreamed of doing anything bigger than what it was. So I was just happy with the cool stuff that he was showing me.
Yeah.
And so then eventually we were, dating.
Right.
And I was attracted to him. I thought he was like super handsome. Like, you're very cute and whatever. But it didn't go super past that, because we also weren't allowed to talk about that kind of stuff.
Wow.
You can't, do the things. You can't biblically know somebody until you're married.
That means sex.
And the Lord does not want you to think about those things. And so we just didn't, like, my actual household, we did not talk about those things. Wow. It just was like, why are you talking about that? You're not doing that, so we don't have to talk about it, right? And then in the church, they don't really talk about it unless they're telling you not to do it.
Right.
Which is fine, but it's like, so from 20 to 24, I got married at 24. We were like dating and we kissed, sorry mom, but we would kiss and whatever. But it was like, you didn't really think, I personally didn't think further past that, because I never really had been exposed to any of that in general in my life, like sexual stuff. It wasn't really a big thing. So when it got to actually being married, planning the wedding was so much fun.
Because you're planning a party.
It was a whole party.
And you love to have a party.
I do, and I love like hosting, and I love people walking into the room and being like, oh, she thought of everything, because I really tried to think of everything. I mean, I had toys on the table for the kids.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that they weren't touching my cake and then Stop touching the cake and go play with your little box of toys. Thank you. And so I tried to think of everything and just like aesthetically pleasing. And it was just like, some people are gluten free. So I was like, we have ice cream. We don't have to have cake. I had ice cream bar. Yeah. And so I just tried to, also, I love ice cream. So it wasn't really for them, but also, you're welcome. But it was like the party itself was super fun. We planned everything out and it was like great. And I was the first out of all of my cousins to have this big old wedding. So my whole family's there. It was like a third of his family, but his family's like 4 times the size as mine. It's like 70 cousins. It was crazy. And so it was like, but it was such a good time. Like, we had so much fun. And it was like, this is great.
Wow.
And it's for me, it's like what I dreamed of. As a little girl, you have your wedding, our families got along.
Yeah.
They're both Hispanic. They knew each other before, like, moms knew each other from back in the day. And I'm like, everything seemed great. And then marriage happened. And it was just like, there was just so many things that we weren't on the same page.
Wow.
And I can't say there weren't red flags before, because I just didn't see them. Because when you're in this kind of like lovey-dovey, like the red flags are like, well, that's just kind of pink. It's not really red.
And I mean, at that age, that's young. Obviously, today people are living longer, right? And so people are waiting to get married longer. And and we're finding out, there was some study years ago that teenagehood, like the teenagers, that actually, they think that lasts even into our 20s nowadays, that whole adolescent experience is longer. So like at 20, 21, 22, 23, would you may not even think that those red flags matter, right? That you're thinking, oh, it's not a big deal. It's a red flag. I don't like that, but it'll be okay because whatever, we'll figure it out. Or he'll change or she'll change or whatever.
I for sure expected change.
Really?
I was like, it'll be different when we're married, because then you'll be with me all the time, and then I can fix you pretty much.
Was that a thought? You think?
Okay. I was very into home improvement, HGTV,
marriage improvement.
I was like, it was almost like it's a project, and it wasn't like,
because you do like to fix things.
I love fixing things. Like, if there's a puzzle, I want to solve it. I will sit there all night, 2 a.m. I'm solving a puzzle. And so his life to me felt like it was a puzzle that no one had tried hard enough to solve it.
Wow.
And it wasn't his fault. You didn't choose a lot of things. Your parents were the way that they were. The life had happened to you the way that it did. So I felt like, let me be the first one to actually give you the time and sit, and we can solve this.
Wow.
Not realizing that I was exhausting myself, because I don't believe people are meant to solve other people's puzzles. The journey of life is solving your own.
That's right. With the help of others, but we are not here to fix other people.
And I spent so much time worried about him, not even thinking of my own issues, which I had plenty.
Oh, we know.
Plenty. Remember that church I grew up in? No. I'm like super scarred, wounded, have all my issues, and I'm like, but I can help him. And it's like,
wow.
But what about you? Like, so instead of taking those years of my 20s to prepare myself to be a wife that's ready and suitable for whatever type of man that I'm going to be with, I spent my years trying to help him clean up certain things in his life and completely neglecting myself.
Wow.
And so I was just the way that I was, and it was like, well, that's how I am, so whatever.
Yeah.
Which that doesn't help.
No.
For him either.
No.
So he's like, well, why are you not getting better? You're pointing out all these issues with me, and what about all your issues?
So
and I'm
in a way, almost distracting yourself from dealing with your own issues by focusing on this guy as a project.
Right. You're the bigger project. We don't got to worry about me. I'm okay. We're going to worry about you. But whenever we would get into arguments and stuff, it was like, but what about you? But what about you? And we're just looking at each other instead of both looking at ourselves like, hey, we probably should have figured this out.
Or, and I know you'll get to this, or at least be willing to figure ourselves out. Right. Now that we're married, okay, now we actually have to tend to ourselves and deal with our issues, right?
Right. And so it's easier to think about that now, being older.
Yeah.
And the different church circles that we're in. I will say 10 years ago, if it was like, you know what, I'm having a hard time, I think I want to go to therapy, that would not be
Yes.
the most,
Right.
you wouldn't get an applause.
No. And you still, depending upon what church environment you're in, you
Right.
still will not get, hey,
Right.
yeah, that's a great idea. It's getting easier, and I think the younger generations get it.
Yeah.
But still, older, I think, sorry if you're old, I don't mean to speak for you, but I think the older we are, the less willing we are to look at that as a need,
Yeah.
as an actual need. Like, I need to go, if I broke my leg, I need to go to the doctor to get it fixed.
Right.
I've got a broken, soul, or a broken emotion,
Right.
traumatic experience. I need to go to a therapist to help me fix
Right.
it. Right.
And what's crazy, because I just always think of analogies, the idea of like, if you break your arm and you don't put a cast on it.
That's right.
And it completely heals, it's going to heal
Wrong.
incorrect.
That's right.
And it's like, how do you fix it? You'd have to break it again.
I use that analogy.
Did you?
You can't see it, but we just
Oh.
gave each other a fist bump.
Pound. Boop. No, that's the sound effect of a. That was a really sad sound effect. Take that out in the post edits.
No way.
I'm just saying.
It's staying in.
I know. Boop. Okay, put it again. But
it's true.
But yeah, so it's like not realizing that it's gonna actually cost more work if
That's
you
right.
don't do the work in the moment
That's
to
right.
then later on in life, because unless you just want to walk around with a crooked arm.
And sometimes we do, because it's more painful to deal with our issues than it is to, or we think it is, and sometimes it is, than to actually correct it.
Right.
And it sounds like, I mean, I don't know your ex, but it sounds like there may have been some denial going on, and maybe an unwillingness to.
Yeah, there was, what had happened was, the story goes, no. So I was 24 when we got married. And at that time, we also started going to a new church.
Okay.
With,
a different church?
With,
So this is different from the one where you finally got to wear pants.
correct.
Okay. So this is a third church.
This is
like
a
the
third
third
church,
church
yes.
you've been to in your life.
Yes, the third church.
Because
and
you're a lifer at
I
churches. You tend to
love
be.
churches, and I want to make them home. As soon as I move in, I'm like, where should I set up camp? I'll stay overnight. I'll do the overnight watch. It's fun. So yes, this is the third church, and it was the first, I would, non-Hispanic.
Okay.
It was like American, I guess, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
And the perspective was so different. There was a lot more educated people.
Okay.
Just out of, because the Spanish culture, not everybody had,
Yeah,
access
unfortunately.
to education, all that stuff.
Right.
And so, and a lot of the people in the churches that we went to, because we were in a small town too, they are just like moving here, trying to just make a better life for their
right,
family.
right.
So they're like first generation.
Right.
So our families, we were both second. Well, I'm second generation. Technically kind of third, because my mom grew up here.
Right.
But his family had moved here. And so he was first generation.
Oh, wow.
And so even with amongst us, it was like we weren't necessarily the most educated.
Okay.
And then going and being surrounded by all these people at
Yes.
churches that were like, their families lived in America for years. They've
Right.
all gone to college. They've
Right.
all done. It was just a higher standard that we were like, wow, you
Yeah.
guys are so smart. Like, and it just was like, it was cool to
Yeah.
see. And then the
Right.
church itself it was the largest church in the area. So it just had really good like systems, procedures, functions. It was just like a really well-oiled
Yeah.
machine.
Right.
And so when we got there, you have pastors who went to Bible college and learned, not that, I can't say our other pastors didn't go to Bible college.
Sure.
I don't know their credentials,
Sure.
to be honest.
Yeah.
But my experience was in the smaller churches, the pastors used the pulpit for their own personal opinions on things.
Theology that they
Yes.
read some
That's like,
1,000-year-old commentaries
yes.
that nobody uses anymore.
it felt very, very like that was probably what you heard in the 80s when you got saved. But now that we're already in 2015, like, can we hear something a little different? And so it was like, it just was like a very, it just felt like new wine.
Right,
That would be
Yeah.
the best way to describe it. It was
Right.
like, wow, what is this? This is
Yeah.
so fresh. This is so new, a new perspective, a new whatever. And so we were like, love this church, amazing. Let's get involved, whatever. With all of that, being around those kinds of people, it pushes you to grow and get better. And, you know, just in all areas, you're around business people, you're around, I mean, you're just like,
you're exposed to new ideas, new
yeah,
thoughts,
like,
new dreams, new realities, right? So they're living completely different lives than you've experienced.
Right. And so one of the big things was, I remember my pastor said something about, I said, I really enjoy being like a leader. Like I just have a leadership. I'm bossy, but I just like.
Well, but you're also a leader.
Naturally, that was my thing. And
just
so
take charge,
I do. And so he was like, well, here at our church, leaders are readers. And I was like, well, I don't really read. So, because I really didn't. I just didn't find reading. It wasn't important to me. It didn't.
It just sounds funny.
I don't read.
I just don't.
I can't read. No, I just was like, well, I don't like to do that. Like, I did that in school, but I haven't been in school in whatever years. I was
Why would you read when you're not in school?
I just was like, I'm not one of those, because I'm not super brainiac person. Like, it just wasn't me. However, he was like, you got to find something that you actually like, right? So, like, my sister, I always use this example. My sister loved Harry Potter. Even though, yes, we grew up in the Pentecostal home. I don't know why.
Did she have to sneak those books in?
No. Listen.
I think your parents didn't really know what they were about.
It was like, we knew that witchcraft was real, but it was like, yeah, you can watch Charmed, and
for real?
I watched Wizards of Waverly Place. I knew all the spells.
Funny?
It's crazy. But on Halloween, we had to pretend like we weren't home, so that we didn't give out candy. No candy here. It's crazy. It's a whole big, anyways.
Wow.
We'll do a third episode on
Halloween.
Pentecostal. The confusions that I had as a child. Like, this
the contradictions.
Yes. And so, anyways, what was I saying? Oh, so my sister read Harry Potter.
Yeah.
I didn't like Harry Potter. I didn't care about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, you can read it to me, but I'm just going to fall asleep. And so when I thought of reading, I thought of that. Like, this, like, fantasy world, whatever.
That didn't interest you.
Not interested at all. I got my hands on a self-help book. Completely changed my life.
Wow.
The idea of reading a book that challenges you to like be a better version of you was like, there's more books like this? And they're like, there's millions.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, I think I like to read. I read the entire book within a week.
Wow.
I just sat there and read it. And that may not be, I mean, some people are like, a week. Okay, read in 3 days. But for a person who never read, like, I just don't read. And it's like, I know how to read. I just don't care for it.
Right. I want to clarify that you do know how to read.
I clearly can read. I can write as well, in case that you were just questioning the skill level. So I learned how to read. No, just kidding. I fell in love with reading because it was self-help and all that stuff. And because of that, my growth was crazy.
Wow.
Within a couple of years.
Wow.
The next 2 or 3 years was like consuming books, challenging, asking my pastor a bunch of questions, and like learning about personalities, and I'm into the whole Enneagram, and like, oh my gosh, this is why I am the way I am.
Growing.
I grew so much. Yeah. And then I would go home and be like, look at all this information I've learned. And he would be like, cool. And it kind of stopped there. And so he had his levels of growth, but the amount of growth that I had, I would say percentage-wise, versus his percentage was different. Yeah. And so I was like, there's not enough. I need more time. I need to read more. I need to grow more. I need to. I was so excited to just keep going, where he was like, man, I grew this year. Let's take a break, you know? Like, and it's not like you shouldn't be proud of your growth. It's cool. But I'm just like.
It's almost as if, not to put words in your mouth, but it seems like it's almost as if you began to understand who you really were and the potential that you had. Right. And he still had not either found that or wanted to find that. Yeah. Right.
That's kind of what it felt like. Yeah.
You went into the marriage like almost like a blank slate, where you was like, who am I? What do I like? What do I don't like? And then you discovered all of this stuff that helped you to understand who you are. Yes.
And who he married was not that person.
Wow.
So for him, it's like, whoa, what are you doing? Yeah. Why are you all of a sudden, you want to wake up at what time to go to the gym? Like, we're not gym people, you know what I mean? And I'm like, we can get up at 4 a.m. and we can go to the gym and we can eat kale. No, just kidding. I've never been a kale person. but it's almost like you're a new person.
Right.
And so I'm evolving into trying to figure out what I like, what I don't like, what's going to be the best for me, how can I grow? And he's just like, this is not what I signed up for. And so we didn't realize it. I don't think, I could say I didn't realize it at the time. But as we're sitting there and as the years passed, it was like, I'm not happy with this.
Right.
We're not actually helping each other be the best. Like, because who I'm becoming is actually further apart from who you're becoming.
Right.
So it's like if we had met each other 5 years after we met each other and had done the work and been those people, would those people have gotten together?
wouldn't have
Probably
gotten
not. Right. And so it's like, but me at 20, I didn't know.
Right.
You hate the world, I hate the world. Let's be friends, right? So now there's a healing going on. I don't hate the world anymore. I'm learning to love the world.
Wow.
And not the world, because we're still Christians. Just be clear, I'm still saved. Thank you. Although God so loved the world that he gave his only son. John 3:16.
So you love life and you love people.
Yes.
Right? And you're
The sinful world. No, I'm kidding. But I fell in love with the journey of life.
Yeah.
And I can figure this out. And I knew, wow, this is going to be one of those like road trips that's 17 hours and you make the first stop at the gas station, like, let's get some snacks because we're going for a ride, you know, fill her up, get that gas tank. But that's how I felt. Like I realized this is an entire journey that I'm about to go on from 5-6 books. You know what I mean? Reading them, I was like, the more I learned, the more I realized how much I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I was so ready to like run after whatever. I just want to run. I just want to go for it. And he's over here like, you need to slow down.
Wow.
Like, what happened to we didn't really have a 5-year plan. We didn't really have a plan at all. It just kind of was like, yay, we're married. Like, let's just make sure we can pay our bills. We'll do some fun stuff on the weekend. Like, I didn't feel like we had like a plan. It was one day we'll have kids. One day we'll have a house. One day we'll do all these things.
Right.
But for me, it was like, I need to fix me.
Right.
Because I didn't want to be like the angry mom.
Yeah.
That now I'm like taking it out on my kids.
Right.
Because I never dealt with my own baggage.
Right.
So I'm learning I can deal with this now.
Wow.
And I wanted to change and I wanted to do all this stuff. And he was just more, I don't think it was so much that he didn't want to, but it was almost like he didn't have the revelation of like, why would we?
Yeah.
It's
he
not
hadn't
that
gotten
bad.
to that point yet. There's a John Maxwell saying that I can never remember fully, but it's something like people grow when they learn enough that they want to, they receive enough that they're able to, they hurt enough that they have to, right? So you had gotten to a point where you were learning enough that you were actually wanting to.
Right.
And he hadn't gotten to any of those places. He probably wasn't learning, wasn't receiving for whatever reason, and wasn't hurting enough to go, I got to change, right? And so I've never been married, probably because it's way too much work, and I don't think I could handle it. But but I, for years, have just through observation seen that people who really don't grow together in some way are eventually going to grow apart. And obviously, you're not going to grow in the same ways.
Right.
But you have to both be growing, right?
Right.
And you were growing at like Adrianna speed, which
It was
is like
a lot.
light years, right? And his was probably a lot slower.
Not light years. It was just the opposite of that. It felt, and so, and at the time I didn't know how to express it.
Yeah.
So it just was like, you're not doing enough, right? And then for him, it's like, you're doing too much, right?
Yeah.
So then we didn't know how to talk about it because,
Yeah.
again, we didn't sign up for this. It just happens over time.
And didn't have the tools to know how to communicate, to know how to work through it.
And so eventually it was like I felt stuck. I just was like, what do? I want to grow. I want to grow in my capacity at work.
Yeah.
I was working at my church at the time, and I was like, I want to be like to get to an executive role. I want to be
Yeah.
running this whole thing. I want
Yeah.
everyone to I think I could be that leader.
Absolutely.
I'm not just bossy.
Yeah.
I learned
There's a reason for my bossiness.
I'm bossy because I didn't have tools, but I'm learning the tools on how to work with people,
right.
how to deal with people. People have told me my whole life, like, oh, you're not good with people, because I've said things very harshly.
Which is not true.
Correct.
You are good with
but I
people.
didn't know that. So
Yeah.
I'm learning, like, to love myself, and, like, I can change. And now I'm starting to dream. I'm starting to think of the future. I'm
Yeah.
starting to do all these things that I never thought I could do.
Right.
And he's not in the dreams. There's no way. The version of him that I saw
Yeah.
could not sustain
No.
the relationship with the person that I'm thinking that I want to become.
Right.
And so it was just like, I had to make a choice. For me, I either settle
Yeah.
and we stay married, we do the kids,
Right.
home, do all that.
Can I interrupt and ask you?
Yeah, go ahead.
What would have happened had you done that? So for you, would you? Because what were the problems that were coming out? Do you feel like you would have had to completely slow down or shut down your growing? That you would have, it would have changed you in a negative way? What were the problems that were starting to appear that you said, this isn't going to work?
Things, okay, so yes, I would have felt like if I would have settled, like if I would have said, you know what, I'm not going to grow as much. I won't read the books. I won't even put the knowledge in my brain, because if I don't know any better, then I can't do any better, right? If I shut all that down, I know that I would have became super nagging wife.
So you would have been more frustrated.
I would have been angry because you didn't let me
Grow.
even if I made the choice.
Right.
I'm choosing to settle because I know that this is the only way that our marriage is going to work.
Right.
I would have resented him. And every day would have been like, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, just
Right.
attitude as soon as we wake up.
Right.
Which I can do that.
Right.
Very easily. I
Sure.
can for sure have an attitude
Sure.
every second of every day.
Well, and again, let me interrupt. You probably could have done that, and the Lord could have given you the grace to do that, where you could have come to a point where it would have been like, okay, this is what I got to do, but whatever, and maybe He'll
Right.
give me a love for you and all that. But you would have fundamentally changed who you were, who you are.
Right.
You would not have been able to grow and reach your potential. And I know that sounds selfish,
Right.
but the reality was, in that situation, you were going to deny fully yourself and your ability to grow to satisfy him and his lack of desire
Yeah.
and willingness to grow,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. And I think that then I was like, well, that's also not fair to him.
Right.
Because now you have this wife who feels like she's doing you a favor every day
Right.
by just not leaving, which is like, who wants that? Who wants to wake up every day and be like, I love you? And it's like, well, I stayed with you, so whatever. Like, that's not, you know?
I love you. I stayed with you.
Yeah. I hope you do. Like, you know? And trust me, I can be super petty, and especially me a couple years ago. I told you I grew a lot, right? So she was not the best. But it was like being able to just process that, for months.
Wow.
Do I stay or do I go? What does going even look like?
Right.
Because then I'm like, all right, let's just say I'm like, you know what? No, I want to grow. I want to do better. And I know that he's not going to be able, he was not going to be able to keep up.
Yeah.
Just because I don't even know if I can keep up with how fast I wanted to run. We're
Right,
just
right.
going to go for it.
Right.
And if I want it to be completely free, you got to cut off everyone else and just go for it. And so I'm like, if I do that, I can't do that. I'm a Christian. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
Like, you can't do that.
Yes.
And it's just like, I mean, other Christians have done it, so maybe I can, but what does that look like? And ultimately it boiled down to either path I choose is going to be very difficult.
Yes.
And I just have to decide which one I'm willing to endure.
Yes,
It's
that's
hard
great-
either way.
That's a great point. It's not like you're going to get out of the marriage and, oh, happy day, everything's good. I'm never going to have to deal with problems again.
No,
and
it's
there won't be
different
any,
problems.
There won't be any lingering effects.
Right, right.
Either way, it's going to be tough.
And I ultimately made the decision to leave. Number one, because I knew that it was the only way that I could see if I could reach the potential
Wow.
for myself.
Yeah.
That's the first. First was for me, for sure. 100%. I was being
Sure.
selfish. I want to see if I can be that
Sure.
girl that I think I could be.
Yeah.
Let's go see if we can get there.
Right.
Number one. Number two, if I stay with him, I'm not bringing out the best in him. And he deserves to have somebody that will bring out the best in him. You shouldn't be with a person who makes you feel bad for being yourself, which was my reason for being like, hey, I think I want to go, because he wasn't making me feel bad like he was saying things to put me down. It would just make me feel bad when he would make comments about like, I just think you're running too fast. And my thought was like, I'm just tying my shoes. I didn't even start. We didn't even get outside yet. Like, what? And so that mindset was like, oh, you don't understand me. I'm just learning to understand myself, so I don't blame you for not knowing me, because, like, who knew me? I was hidden this whole time.
Yeah.
But I really was like, I don't want to do that to him. I don't want him to feel like she doesn't understand me. And now we have two people who don't understand each other, trying to make each other be the opposite of what they really are.
Right.
All because when we were 20,
Right.
we started dating, and the church says, hey, this
The
is your
next step-
person forever.
The next step is to get married and then to stay married for
And
life.
I was like, I don't think I want to do that. Because the reality is, I'm also like, let's just think logically for a second. We're having problems on year 2. Well, really year 1, I was like, so what are we doing? Like,
Yeah.
I was already like, where's this going? Year 2 was when I first brought up, like, this isn't really working for me. I'm not really a huge fan of how this is going.
Right.
Year 3 was when we actually ended up
Divorce.
separating and getting divorced. And so it was like, some people are like, well, the first 3 years are the hardest, and if you get past that, you're fine. Cool. Well, I didn't. Because here's why. I believe that if I would have stayed married, if I would have settled, or even if he would have been trying really hard, but he could have tried super hard and eventually burnt out.
Yeah.
And then now he's frustrated, and he gave everything he had, and I'm still not satisfied because it still wasn't enough for me, right? Like, so that's the fear. I'm never going to be enough for you. And then for me, it's like, I feel like I have to change who I am to be with you. Like, so let's not stay together for another 10 years. And then at
kind of see what happens.
and then at 15 years, when we're both a little bit older, a little bit more gray, then we'll break up and try to start over. Like, I don't want to start over later. Let's just do it now.
Yeah.
Let's just call it what it is. Hey, you know what? We tried.
Well, and I think there's a lot to, and every marriage is complicated. Every marriage has challenges, whether you get married young or old. But in your situation, it's very clear that you guys were young and had no idea. And
Right.
and at least for you, you really you had no idea who you were and what you wanted and what you were capable of. I mean,
Right.
you went in, it sounds like, just completely just unaware.
I was just happy to move out.
Yeah, and
Get out of my parents' home and start a life. And then once you're living it, you're like, wait a minute.
yeah, and there's kind of this struggle in Christianity in particular, because we believe the church theology is that you don't have sex outside of marriage. And that's great when back in Bible times people are coming to puberty at, like, I don't know when, but they're getting married at like 13, right? But nowadays puberty happens later, and teenagehood, adolescence lasts until your 20s.
Right.
Men's brains are not fully developed until they're 25. So we're talking about, and hormones are starting, and so, and by no means am I saying, you should, have sex before marriage. That's only part of the problem. It's that we're not doing a good enough job of helping to prepare people for what marriage is. We're not helping them to understand puberty, hormones, sexual desires, and then understanding themselves, and then how then do you approach marriage? And so it's like, well, I want to have sex, so let's get married. Or I want to move out of my parents' house, so let's get married.
Right.
And we've just which is very common of us as humans in the church, we focus on one thing as opposed to helping people understand the thing, right?
And I've met a lot of people now that are my age, 30s or late 20s, that are like never been married, never been engaged, never been whatever. And I'm like, How?
Yeah.
Because the way that I grew, I mean, I also had friends who were married at 20.
Yeah. And are
Or
they still
19.
married?
Not all of them. There's there's a handful of people who the church said
Yeah.
because either they were caught having sex and it was like you got to fix it, so you need to get married
Wow.
so
Yep.
that you're
Yep. Yep.
burning loins, you can make it appropriate in the house of the Lord. No one cared about the fact that it was like,
They shouldn't be together.
yeah, like
or they're too
you're not good
young.
together. It just
Yeah.
was like get married because again, like you said, the focus was don't have sex,
Right.
and it was like okay, cool. Well, you accomplished that because now they're married and they hate each other and they're not having sex. Or that's all they're doing, but they don't talk to each other. There's no communication. They're terrible. Whatever. So it's like years later now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a handful of friends that I have that are like all divorced, and I'm like, man, what is?
Well, and thank goodness for you guys there were no
Crazy.
kids, because I
Yes,
know that
yes.
makes it a whole lot more complicated. Again, in no way am I or are you, I think, saying that, just do whatever you want and it's always
No.
okay to divorce or anything like that. But because when you have kids, way more complicated.
Yep.
But again, there are complexities to life that it's human nature for us to want to just boil down to simple do's and don'ts without truly understanding the Father's heart, God's heart for us. And
Right.
again, I go back to that statement that God created marriage for us as a benefit to us.
Yeah.
He didn't create us for marriage.
Yeah.
The institution of marriage is not more important than us as humans being made in the image of God, living out the calling and the purpose that He has for us. And
Yeah.
so it's like we need to do a better job
Yeah.
of talking about that,
Yeah. I tell everyone, especially now being in Bible school. First of all, Bible college, young girls, they really want that ring by spring.
They really do.
It's ring by spring, and it's like they joke, but also
It's true.
their
It's
hair
true.
is done every time they're at chapel. Like, hey guys, how you guys doing? It's just the reality. It's just like because it's
It's the expectation.
it's the goal.
Yeah.
It's number one because of like we can have sex, and that's
Right.
always like a big thing, especially if you're saving yourself. So you're for sure like one day
Absolutely.
I will make it to that moment. But it's also like the fantasy sometimes of the way that
Yeah.
we're raised is like
Yeah.
your role as a wife is
Right.
so fulfilling, and it's like
As if that's all you were created
yeah,
for.
like you can be yourself
Yeah,
too.
right.
So it's like learning. I always try to tell the young ones, I'm like, first of all, do not get married until you're like 25.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's old. And I'm like, well, I'm 30, so relax. But I'm like, I was 24 and I still was too young. And I was like, do the work first.
Yes.
Even if it's not by an age, right? Like it's maybe you're
Sure.
22 and you've done whatever
Sure.
work, but figure out who you are.
Right.
Take all the freaking personality tests that you got to take.
Right.
Read the books.
Right.
Leaders are readers. Read the books, do the work, figure out who you are, what you like. I'm like, trust me, I've never met anybody who waited a couple years to get married and regretted it.
Right.
But I for sure know all the people that got married
That's
at 20
right.
and they were like, man, I wish I would have waited
That's
5
right.
more years. Now, dating for 5 years with that same person is like, eventually you're like, well, we've been dating. Like,
Yeah.
are we going to get married? Are we not?
Right.
So sometimes it's like, you don't have to necessarily commit either.
Yeah, right.
Date around.
Right.
Don't sleep around. Date around.
Now, even that, I mean, you and I grew up differently, but there and still is today an idea about, dating a lot of people that
Oh,
that's,
we didn't date.
that's not an okay thing.
Married people. That was
Right.
it.
And so we've put a negative on that, and so
Right.
people feel like they've got to not date a lot of people,
Yeah.
not and by dating a lot of people, again, it doesn't mean that you're even doing stuff with them, not
Right.
not even talking about sex.
Go out and get some dinner.
Right, go out
Get
and
to
have
know a
coffee
person,
and
yeah.
get to know them, meet their families, see who they're really like. But that is taboo.
Well, even that helped me learn more about me.
Wow.
So I've went on dates and stuff after I got divorced, and I was
Sure.
like, all right, why do I like this person? What is it about him?
Yeah.
That it's like, one guy, so I dated this guy who's a musician.
Yeah.
Saxophone player, trumpet player. He was really cute too. But
Yeah.
I loved the musical side of him. And I was like, that's something that's important to me.
Okay.
As a musician, a
Sure.
singer, I find value in that.
Sure.
He wasn't so big into church.
Okay.
he believed in God, and I was
Sure.
like, that's cool, but I also love church. So,
So,
I kind of
then-
need somebody, like, so we didn't click on that, but I loved that musical side of him, whatever.
Right.
Cool. Dated a different guy,
Yeah.
just went on a date.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy, just like, hey,
Yeah.
let's meet up at whatever. And in talking to him, it's like his family was super into church and all that stuff and whatever. I mean, like, he got the praying grandma, he got the all that. I was like, amen, hallelujah. Our grandmas will be best friends, and it's really cool, whatever. He wasn't a musician.
Wow.
So then I have to go home and just ask myself, what are the things that I'm willing to like, what do I enjoy about, like, do I need a Holy Ghost filled musician who does everything I do? Like, there has to be levels of compromise.
Absolutely.
Right? But
what are the things that are important?
But dating helped me kind of sit back and say, okay, I don't like these conversations because they don't feel like they have substance, but these ones feel really good because we're talking about whatever I have interest in and he had interest. So then it's like it's helping me to narrow down what I'm attracted to, what I'm not attracted to, and like sometimes you just don't know until you get out there and try. You're like, you know what? I really don't like this.
Well, until you see something that you do, something new that you've experienced. And so again, I'm certainly not recommending like being a floozy as you're dating, but literally just having coffee with somebody, and or even in a group setting, but you're kind of dating or whatever, but you're getting to know people and you're finding out who it is that really helps me be a better Christian, who helps me love God better, who helps me grow, and that ultimately needs to be the thing, right? And we don't really know that sometimes. First, it comes knowing ourselves, but then also knowing people.
And I believe if me and my ex would have done that, both separately, dated different people, got to know people, and with the intention of, hey, let's just get to know each other, would have been way different.
Well, and you probably wouldn't have gotten married, it sounds like, because you were two really, really different people that were really not compatible. It sounds like. I don't know your ex, but there was probably nothing drawing you to him other than the anger, and maybe he was funny, right? But those things...
No, he was hilarious.
Those things will only last.
It's true. The laughters went away. And then it was like, I heard that joke already, Then when you're angry, you just start picking little things that aren't, whatever, so...
Well, in coming to the end of this podcast, you've already given a lot of really good advice. What would be, I guess, your closing thoughts on this? And I guess maybe reflect a little on the post-divorce. How hard was that? So not to, again, we don't want to glorify divorce. I'm sure you felt freedom, but also what? Guilt?
Oh, yeah.
Shame?
Yeah.
People maybe ostracize you? I don't know.
It depends. I mean, I've had people in the dating field where you meet Christian men and it's like, hey, just so you know, like, I'm divorced. I'll put it out there first thing because I know. I literally had someone tell me, well, you can't do that. And I'm like, sir, I already did. And he's like, well, the Bible says blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, looks like we're not going to be a match. It's okay. It's cool. You don't have to approve. I don't want to date you either, to be honest. But it's that, like, I never know how people are going to take it. Yeah. Some people are super cool about it, and they don't care. I went on a date with a guy once where it was like, so, like, why are you 30 and single? And it was like, oh, well, this was my whole story, and I gave him everything. And then he was like, oh, okay, here's my story. I was married for 6 years. Wow. And then we divorced. I'm like, what? So it's like, it's not as uncommon nowadays.
Sure.
But I would say... yeah, for sure there's like levels of guilt and stuff. I never felt guilt from God.
Good.
I never felt like the Lord was upset with me.
Good.
I think that he was like, both paths are going to be hard. Whichever one you pick, I will be there with you. Right. And so that was comforting. I think my family surprisingly was very supportive. I think because they saw how...
Unhappy?
Yeah, I was just unhappy and like how much it affected me. They were like, we just want you back. We want the... young, fun, whatever, Adrianna back. Yeah. So whatever that looks like. There was a lot of questions, and they still were like, well, did you try? Like, like
did you try this?
Yeah, and it's like, well, did you guys ever do this? And I'm just like, guys, it's fine. Like, support me? No. But even with that, it changes perspective. Once you experience it, now it's kind of like, man, now we all have someone in the family that now we know is divorced, who still goes to church and still loves Jesus. But even that, like the church not really having full resources and stuff, it's like a lot of people don't know because they've never experienced it.
Yeah.
Or if they did, it was, like you said earlier, affairs or
Yep.
really toxic situations
Right.
where mine wasn't. And so I would say I've told people, because I've had people ask me, like, how did you know that it was time for you? Because I've been thinking about leaving. And I was like, listen, I do not believe that divorce is God's best at all. I think that there's many things that we do in life that we choose not to do God's best, right? In multiple areas.
Right.
God's best is not for us to live off McDonald's. That is not the Lord's best.
Sorry, McDonald's.
It's yes. Any like all
Yeah.
of that processed food,
Right,
we
right.
know that it's bad for
Right.
us physically.
Right.
We will still eat it sometimes.
Yeah.
Some people live the kale life. Bless you, praise the Lord, right? But so there's some people that it's like you know better, you do better.
Yeah.
Other times we know better, and we're like, well, it's not that big of a deal. So I feel like there's levels of choices that we make in life that are like it's not God's best, but I know God's not going to leave me. I'm going to choose it because I'm choosing it. I felt full peace when I
Yeah.
got married.
Yeah.
I felt like I was making the best decision.
Right.
I mean, my family was, everybody was kind of like, it took a little bit because
Sure.
they had to kind of get used to
Sure.
him and whatever. But it was like, we worked it out and it was
Yeah.
like, this is going to be great. And then when I was like, oh no, I don't think I want to do this anymore, I felt peace about leaving. And for
Yeah.
some people, that doesn't make any sense. And they're like, God doesn't change his mind. God, I don't know if God changes his mind, to be honest. I don't actually know. All I know is that I felt peace going in. I
Yeah.
felt peace leaving.
Wow.
Who I am today is I would have not be the same person if I didn't get married, for sure. Because he brought out so many different things about me.
Wow.
So I can't say that it was God's perfect will for me to get married and get divorced.
But there was positive in it.
Yes.
And that's a powerful thought. So again, we harp on the even in Malachi it says God hates divorce, God hates divorce, and that's the phrase that gets repeated. And
Yeah.
yet we see that in this that there was positive, there was good that
Right.
came out of it that helped you to grow as a person.
Right. And God hates divorce. God hates the breaking of any covenant,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
How many times you promise God, I'll never do it again, Lord, if you get me out of this situation? How many times we make like verbal covenants with the
Yeah.
Lord and we break them all the time?
Right.
Not saying that it's okay,
Right.
but to just shove divorce in people's faces
Right.
as like the ultimate unforgiveness, like
Yeah.
it's your entire life
Yes.
based on one decision.
Right.
So yes, I would say do the work beforehand.
Yes.
If you're already married and you're struggling or whatever, try doing the work now. I wouldn't say just use divorce as the quick
No,
option.
no.
Like for me it was years.
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't trying to get divorced for years, but
Right.
I was processing it for
Right,
years.
right.
And so the idea of like I've tried this, I've tried,
Right.
and I'm exhausted. And so
Right.
ultimately you make your decisions and you
Right.
got to live with whatever the consequences are, both sides.
Well, and there are, again, coming back to kind of the idea that we've only allowed for affairs to be the reason to divorce. There are some, and I think we are really understanding more and more how unhealthy people are, how toxic certain people are, how abusive. There may be a spouse who is verbally abusive or emotionally abusive. That word narcissist is now in vogue, but it's a real thing. And there are real people, even Christians,
Yeah.
who just really have no awareness of their own abuse towards others. And so to command that people stay in abusive situations because of this rigid idea is not understanding the full picture, the full person. And we have to look at, and every situation is different, but God wants us to be in situations where we can grow, and we can grow in situations that are harmful to us if we have no other option. If we are a slave somewhere, if we are in prison or whatever it might be, and we have no choice, then God, yes, absolutely can grow us in those situations. But there are situations in which people may need to get out of those, and the only option is divorce. And again, I know people will disagree with that, and that's okay. And you can feel free to contact me, especially Adrianna. I'll give you her cell phone number and her email.
Honestly, let's chat. Because I already did it, guys. It already happened.
But it's worth talking about. So at the very least, reflecting on these ideas. And again, it's not a quick fix. It's not meant to be something that you casually do. But also thinking about, did I casually enter that relationship to begin with? Why did I get married? And yes, God can redeem marriages and redeem people, but both people have to want it.
Right.
And I
agree.
And I think that was a situation for you, especially where it really wasn't both people really, really, really wanting to make the changes needed to grow. So thanks for joining me again. I'm gonna have you back. We've already discussed.
I'll just be the co-host.
You should just be the co-host. For sure, we'll have you back. But thanks for listening, and I really hope that you find some value in this, and as well as humor. But it challenging us in our approach to theology and other things. And thanks for listening. This was episode 40 of the Nefesh podcast, and we will talk to you next time.